How do you get people back in? Is it just about price?
I think it's about more than price, actually. I think you've got to have assortment, you've got to have a sense of excitement, you've got to have ambiance in the store. So I think really just focusing on price at the end of the day is really just a race to the bottom.
To Joe Stiglitz's land of inequality, there are people at Penney that are never going to darken the door at Tiffany's. You're going to merchandise and market differently at Penney than at these other stores. What does Mr. Allman need to do today?
So I think job number one is to really understand who that core customer is and to really know them intimately. As you said, the customer who's shopping at Tiffany's is not the customer who's shopping at Penney. So who is that customer? What do they do? How do they think? Who do they interact with? What is it that they're really looking for? Unless that's really understood at a very detailed level, the strategy is not going to work.
Well, what's been clear is that Penney customers are bargain hunters and they like sales and they like promotions. How quickly can Mr. Ullman turn this strategy around?
Well, I think history would say that turning this around is not going to be easy. I mean, we've seen with the previous experience with the CEO that this was very, very difficult. So I don't know what he has in his back pocket. But
well, this is critical then. Do they go back? Is it just simply Mike Allman turns the clock back 7, 8, 9, 10 years? Or is your world so disruptive that there's a new, even if you want to go to some semblance of back?
Well, there's some element of that, but I think there are retailers that really get it. If you look at Target I think gets it. I think Walmart gets it. I think Macy's has been doing very well. I think, of course, we look at Apple. One of the reasons Apple is so strong is because of their retail business.
And because of Ron Johnson. Joe Stiglitz, where is the American consumer?
Well, I think one of the things one has to take into account is that the consumer that is in the middle or the bottom has not been doing very well. That incomes have been going down.
Steve Roach says they're flat on their back. He was in earlier this week saying they're flat on their back.
Steve is absolutely right. Wealth is back to the level that it was 20 years ago. So people are, there was an optimism back in 2007. There isn't that optimism.
Then how do you do this, David Bell? If we're in Joe Stiglitz's world, which Dr. Roach agrees with, how do you market to people other than value and price?
Well, I think you have to really understand what they need, and if it's a price game, it's going to be very, very difficult.
I need a new pair of blue jeans.
Well, and then talk about further pressures on the consumer, like, for instance, now they have to pay higher payroll taxes.
That's right. In fact, real incomes, when you take that into account, are going another hit this year. Real wages have been stagnant. One of the people you talk about, customers, young customers coming in for the first time. The fact is that the real wages of the new entrants in the labor force, both high school graduates and college graduates, are down markedly. So, they're not entering with a sense of enthusiasm of future. It's really a constraint.
Within this milieu, which is, I'm going to suggest, is a milieu of Penney, they've got to affect a plan today, given all their cash challenges and that. How do you, at a fancy school like Wharton, say to Mike Allman, go private or stay public? How do you determine that?
Well, I think, again, it all starts and ends with the customer. I'm kind of a marketing guy, so for me, I want to know, what is the value proposition that he plans to present to the customer, and how is that going to get people back into the stores? After all, most of what they're selling really is discretionary. I mean, I have a pair of blue jeans now. Do I need another pair next month or 2 months? I can defer most of the purchases.
What is your best practices for Mr. Allman? What's his best practice today?
So I think his best practice today is probably a value play. I mean, that's really been the heritage of Penney, but I think it has to be a value play that really encourages a core customer to come back. It's about building loyalty. It's about having an identity that's different from the other retailers that are out there.
And who should he look to for inspiration? Should he look to Terry Lundgren of Macy's?
I think you should look anywhere where there's been success in retail, absolutely. Macy's has been successful.
Can I say one aspect that's going to make it more difficult is that a lot of these stores that we're selling to the, you might say, the bottom end, we're importing very cheap clothes, apparel from China. With the appreciation of the Chinese currency, real appreciation, something that the United States was pushing for,